Hours, one of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
Video gamers across the country are anxiously awaiting the midnight release of a game called Halo 2.
The launch of what is perhaps one of the most anticipated console video games of all time. I'm going to step aside and let these guys tell you what it is.
The lead up to Halo 2's launch was one of the biggest things in gaming during the early 2000s. Everyone and their mom was excited for this game's release, even having coverage by major news outlets. However, upon release, Halo 2 saw pretty mixed opinions from the gaming community, with its rocky matchmaking, broken promises, and that polarizing ending. But all of this didn't stop me from absolutely loving Halo 2 when I first got my hands on it several years later. Hey guys, Matt here, and today we're going to be talking about Halo 2, my thoughts on the game, both past and present, as well as the disastrous development that Bungie had to go through to get this game out the door. So grab your Duke controllers and let's get into this. It's no surprise to anyone now that Halo 2's development was a disaster, with its short development time and the amount of crunch the team went through. I mean, some of the development struggles Bungie had are even shown in the Collector's Edition DVD, but development wasn't always like this. In fact, early on in development, Bungie seemed absolutely thrilled that they were going to be working on a sequel to Combat Evolved, with all these massive plans to create huge technical improvements, various unique character animations, as well as player models, and scaling large playable environments that would be bigger than anything we've seen in the original Halo. Halo 2 wasn't only planned to be something we've never seen in the first-person shooter genre, but also an experience that would rival cinema. But Microsoft was the new kid on the block. They needed a golden goose to keep people interested in the Xbox through the holidays, as well as carry the console till the end of its life. And E3 2003 was right around the corner. Bungie had immense pressure to show off something truly remarkable at E3. And while most games would show off a trailer or a pre-rendered cinematic, Bungie wanted to do something different. They wanted to showcase the game people were going to play, and have fans see how they implemented these cinematic experiences into the gameplay of Halo 2. And after putting themselves through hell, working day in, day out, Bungie was able to create their E3 demo. It just, well, wasn't what the game was going to be. After Bungie came back from E3, they came to the realization that the graphics engine was never going to work, so they scrapped the entire thing and started from scratch. After this, Bungie went down a spiral of fan hype and disorganization. They started building things that just couldn't be played in any engine. Things that they finished building and added detail to, but unfortunately needed to be cut.
And when we got to the actual implementation of some of the choices we had made, we realized that it's impossible. And we went around and around on that and other questions for perhaps too long.
Halo 2 was a game that Bungie had so much ambition, so many ideas, but they just couldn't get it all in. New enemy types, levels, vehicles, several ideas were cut to save time, and after watching this documentary over and over for this video, one message that Bungie made clear was that they just needed more time.
If we could have some more time, that would be great, but the fans are screaming.
More time, more time.
Yeah, we could have used a lot more time.
If you can invent a 75-hour day, you'd be my best friend.
We're not asking to work shorter days. We're asking to work as hard as we're working right now, but just 2 weeks.
I only learned about some of the struggles Bungie went through several years after the game released, and only got a better understanding of the whole situation after Bungie released Destiny. So I went into Halo 2 without any prior knowledge of what was promised or what hardships the team went through. So that begs the question, what was my experience with Halo 2? The first time I ever played Halo 2 was at a friend's house. I played split-screen multiplayer for a bit, had fun, but didn't really think much of it until shortly after my addiction to Halo Reach. when I found the collector's edition of Halo 2 for $15 at a retro game store. I bought that shit without hesitation and beat the campaign within the week. I was hooked. I watched the bonus disc like 5 times. I would invite friends over to play campaign co-op and split-screen multiplayer. This game felt like a new release to me and gave me some of my fondest couch co-op memories. But it's 2023 now, several years after I completed the campaign. So what do I think of the game now, as a whole? Well, for starters, the soundtrack is a banger. I mean, what else did you expect from a soundtrack that has music from bands like Hoobastank, Incubus, and Breaking Benjamin? Not to mention the fact that we had our boy Marty working on the soundtrack. Seriously, we got some real banger songs like Unforgotten, In Amber Clad, and Blow Me Away, to name a few of my favorites. Back in my Halo Reach video, I almost said that Reach's soundtrack was my favorite of the Halo games. But after replaying Halo 2, I realized that I was a damn fool. Halo 2 has the best soundtrack hands down. Like, my god, its main theme was even put into Guitar Hero 3. It was that badass. So sorry, Halo Reach. I love you, but Halo 2 just has more bangers. But hey, since we're on the topic of bangers, let's talk about the campaign. Halo 2's story picks up right where we left off in CE, but from a new perspective. We finally get to learn more about the Covenant and get a glimpse into what their society is like, as well as their hierarchy. This was fucking sick. I was so glad that Bungie made the Covenant into more than just aliens that mindlessly kill humans. Instead, we have religious fanatics that see Chief as a demon. Later on, we get to see Chief and our boy Sergeant Johnson looking dapper as ever. Hell yeah. Now Johnson, I'm glad to see you, but I could have sworn that things didn't turn out too great for you at the end of Combat Evolved. Or maybe they turned out a little too well for you. The intro cinematic to Halo 2 sets everything up fantastically by providing more context to the events of the first game, passing the torch from Captain Keyes to his daughter Miranda, and setting up the inevitable conflict between the Arbiter and Chief. But Bungie went above and beyond my expectations when it came to the conflict between Arbiter and the Chief, by actually letting us play as the Arbiter. That's right, for the first time ever, not only did we get to learn more about the Covenant, but we got to play as the Covenant. This was insane to me back in the day. I mean, my god, we got to fight alongside other elites and hunters. Freaking hunters! I'm still giddy just thinking about it. But going back to the allies we fight alongside, let's talk about the AI in the campaign. The AI in Halo 2 is overall fantastic and essentially addresses the very few complaints I had about the AI in Combat Evolved, while also improving upon things that were already great to begin with. For starters, hunters actually feel like a threat and aren't easily cheesed like in the previous game. You're able to equip friendly AI with weapons of your choice, and they actually do a decent amount of damage this time around. Thank God. Regardless of all the improvements though, there were still some changes that rubbed me the wrong way. Energy stored elites are now easier to cheese, making them the new hunters, and rocket flood can now lock onto vehicles. Yippee! Now, these aren't deal breakers by any stretch of the imagination, but they do impact my feelings towards certain levels. And speaking of levels, I can only describe Halo 2's level design as less than ideal. It's not terrible by any means, but when you look at Halo 2 and you compare it to Combat Evolved, there's just no debate about it. Combat Evolved had way better level design, which is honestly just sad to say when you're talking about the sequel to Combat Evolved. Don't get me wrong, from an artistic standpoint, these levels are stunning with beautiful set pieces. There are a nice change of pace from Combat Evolved's copied and pasted hallways and rooms. I mean, just try and tell me you weren't giddy seeing the ring's architecture while playing through High Charity, or feel like a badass when you drove a scorpion across the massive bridge in Metropolis. See, the levels look good, they're just not as fun to play in. Like, I can't even count the amount of times I was stuck fighting off enemies in some courtyard and having to wait for the next wave to slowly come in. In fact, this damn area on its own sums up what I'm talking about. I remember when I first played this section and I genuinely thought my game was glitched. It took that long for the next wave of enemies to appear. Regardless of the issues I have with the level design in Halo 2's campaign, I still have levels I consider to be great, even when compared to some of the other games in the series. For example, Uprising, where you take control as the Arbiter during the Elite Uprising against the Covenant. There's also Quarantine Zone, which despite the aforementioned hatred of Rocket Flood, is still very enjoyable. Traveling across Delta Halo through several epic battles between the Flood and Sentinels, with a strong emphasis on vehicles. Going into those wide open spaces filled with enemies, it's truly an incredible level. And finally, Gravemind, which in my opinion had some of the tightest combat in Halo 2, which made for a really fun level. As I said before, the levels aren't terrible, they're just not as good as CE's, and you will find some form of enjoyment in Halo 2's levels. Something I wish I could say about Legendary difficulty. Seriously, Bungie never thoroughly playtested or fixed the majority of major campaign aspects for Halo 2, and Legendary was probably one of the most noticeable rushed aspects of the game. Shield and Vitality stats are set to 70 and 30 respectively, and are 50% their normal resistance, meaning a few shots from just about any weapon will drain the shields, and at least a few more shots will kill you. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm shooting a fucking super soaker with any weapon I use. Enemy behavior is considerably more aggressive and smarter, resulting in enemies that will fight longer, shoot faster, stick together more often, and will attempt to hunt you down more frequently. And do I even need to mention the dreaded, the horrifying Sniper Jackals? This is made even more gruesome due to the game's less than ideal level design, and when you attempt Legendary in co-op, since it's essentially like you share a life with player 2. I remember a few years back, me and a friend attempted Legendary co-op, and after several deaths, hundreds of deaths, on just the first level, we beat that first level, and my friend just goes, "This kind of sucks. Seriously, whatever you do, don't play this game in co-op on Legendary. And you know what? Just don't even touch Legendary in Halo 2. Unless you're looking for an experience where at the end of it, you're gonna hate yourself." Oh my god, man. Let's just move on. Alright, let's talk about the ending. A lot of people hated how Halo 2 ended. I mean, a lot. Some thought the cliffhanger ending made the campaign feel incomplete. Some thought it made the game feel short. And others just thought it was bad. I personally didn't really care. I actually thought it was perfectly fine. Now, given at this point in time, we already had Halo 3 and Halo Reach. So I could just go to GameStop and get Halo 3 for $20 and figure out what happened next. So I understand why people would be upset. But for me, like I said, I didn't really care. I went and bought Halo 3 right after. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's move on. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to play Halo 2's multiplayer on OG Xbox Live back in the day because, well, I was 5 and also I was a PS2 kid. Shocking, I know, right? My parents decided to go with the system that was more popular and had a DVD player built in. However, I did do my research, and I did play a shit ton of local multiplayer. Not to mention the fact that I was heavily addicted to Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer. So let's talk about Halo 2 multiplayer. Halo 2 was the reason to pay for Xbox Live back in the day. Sure, there were other games that utilized the service, but no one did it like Halo 2. With its online matchmaking, proximity voice chat, and DLC map packs. Halo 2's multiplayer expansions even became permanently free only 2 months after they released. Can you even think of another console game back then that offered more content for free after launch? However, despite all the positive qualities of Halo 2's online multiplayer, there were some downsides. Players reported having difficulties finding online matches, so I guess that's one issue MCC allowed me to experience from the original. You see guys, MCC wasn't broken, it was just historically accurate. There were also several things that required a patch to fix, and I think this Reddit post sums it up pretty nicely for those who experienced these issues. However, for those who encountered little to no issues, they were treated to fantastic map variety with the 12 maps included at launch, as well as incredibly fun new game modes like Juggernaut, Assault, and Territories. RIP Race from Combat Evolved. You just weren't popular enough. But hey, these are just things you can find out from a quick Google search. So let's get on with my thoughts already. Most of my experience with the multiplayer when I first got my hands on it was just split screen free-for-all with a few friends. And even though this wasn't the most exciting thing you could do in Halo 2, it was still incredibly fun for me. And it's probably just because Halo 2 improves immensely on a lot of the fantastic things in Halo Combat Evolved. The game has really tightened up its shooting mechanics. The dual wielding system is just a blast to use and you feel like such a badass using it. Weapon variety was insane with the addition of weapons like the battle rifle, the SMG, and the beam rifle, along with several other new entries to your arsenal. MP has a good level variety as well as the solid level design that provided a good balance of small and large maps. I remember back in the day, the standout maps for me were Beaver Creek, which is a tiny canyon featuring 2 symmetrical bases that are separated by a small creek, Lockout, an asymmetrical map that takes place on a structure fixed to the ledge of a mountain, and Foundation, which is the only map that requires you to beat the campaign before you can play it. Also, fun fact, it's based on the Thunderdome maps from the Marathon series. But my favorite maps quickly changed once I got my hands on the Master Chief Collection, since I got that sweet taste of some of those DLC maps that I wasn't able to experience. Maps like Warlock, Backwash, and Gemini. Plus, have you ever played a remastered multiplayer game and thought, wow, all these maps were so fantastic back in the day? Then you actually play the remastered version and you realize, man, the player base has changed up their strategies so much so where these maps are garbage for how people play nowadays. That's kinda how I felt with some of Halo 2's maps. For example, in Beaver Creek, there's always people camping at the teleporters waiting for someone to pop out, so those are no longer a viable option. And in Foundation, people just camp the spawn rooms, or wait outside them with rocket launchers. It's really annoying. Also, my 3 favorite maps, back when I played local multiplayer, are pretty much the only ones that come up for Halo 2 matchmaking in MCC, making them just sort of feel repetitive and kind of boring. In fact, the only one that I don't feel this way towards is Lockout. But back when MCC was way more active, my favorite maps to play in Halo 2 matchmaking were Warlock, which is sort of a small dungeon-like map that has 4 bases crammed really close together with teleporters near each one. Then Backwash, which was a mid-sized map which sort of resembled 343 Guilty Spark from Combat Evolved. And finally, the aforementioned Lockout. I just like it so much. It's such a good map. On second thought, I take back what I said about Backwash. 0 out of 10. You can't kill Guilty Spark. In conclusion, despite its stressful development and mixed response on release, Halo 2 still goes hard even today, and it blows my mind that Bungie was able to create a game of this caliber in such a short time. I mean, I bought MCC just because of Halo 2, and when MCC came to PC, I bought Halo 2 Anniversary, which I still play to this day. The campaign offers an exciting experience, and the multiplayer is still incredibly fun. Halo Reach may still be my favorite Halo, but 2 gives it a run for its money, and to this day remains at the top of my list for the series and first-person shooters as a whole. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below telling me about some of your fondest Halo 2 memories, and consider subscribing for more content like this. I've been rezoraptor, and I will see you guys next time.